The wind reaches the land before any human ever does. It moves without intention, without memory, without mercy. It strips heat from exposed skin, presses ice into lungs, and erases tracks as if no one was ever there. For ancient humans, this wind is not weather. It is a force of physics. And physics does not negotiate. Across the planet, early humans settle not in comfort, but in necessity. Ice Age plains, subarctic forests, high-altitude valleys where oxygen thins and temperatures collapse after sunset, deserts where the day burns and the night freezes. These environments do not allow mistakes. They punish delay. They exploit weakness. The human body is fragile in these conditions. At rest, it produces roughly 100 watts of metabolic heat, barely enough to maintain core temperature in mild conditions. In cold air, heat escapes rapidly through convection. Add wind, and heat loss accelerates exponentially. At minus 20 degrees Celsius, exposed skin can freeze in less than 30 minutes. Hypothermia does not announce itself with pain. It arrives quietly, dulling coordination, clouding judgment, slowing the heart. Ancient humans do not understand thermodynamics as equations, but they live inside its consequences. They observe that heat always moves outward, that cold sinks, that moisture steals warmth faster than dry air, that stillness can kill as surely as exhaustion. Before tools, before art, before ritual, shelter becomes the first engineering problem. A shelter must do one thing above all else: slow the movement of energy. It must resist wind, trap heat, and reduce exposure. Comfort is irrelevant. Survival is the metric. Early builders learn quickly that flat surfaces fail. Wind pressure increases with speed. A storm moving at 90 kilometers per hour can exert hundreds of newtons of force against a wall. Sharp angles catch this force. Curves deflect it. Snow huts, domed roofs, rounded earthen walls. These shapes are not aesthetic. They are aerodynamic solutions. The ground becomes the most reliable ally. Soil changes temperature slowly. Just 1 meter below the surface, daily and seasonal fluctuations fade. In many regions, subsurface temperatures remain near 10 degrees Celsius year-round, warmer than winter air, cooler than summer heat. Ancient humans feel this difference in their bones. They dig. Across continents, similar solutions emerge independently. Semi-subterranean pit houses, dugouts reinforced with wood, stone, and animal bone, sod structures stacked thick with earth and grass. These dwellings do not fight the environment. They embed within it. Earth blocks wind. Earth stores heat. Earth absorbs sound. It transforms chaos into stillness. Wall thickness becomes critical. A wall half a meter thick dramatically slows conductive heat loss. Multiple layers trap air, and air is the true insulator. Stone stores heat from fire during the day and releases it slowly at night. Wood insulates but burns, forcing careful placement. Animal hides block drafts while remaining flexible. Interior space is minimized. Every cubic meter of air requires energy to heat. High ceilings waste warmth. Narrow rooms concentrate it. Many winter shelters are so low that standing is impossible. Sitting conserves heat. Lying down conserves life. Entrances reveal sophisticated logic. Cold air sinks. Warm air rises. A lowered tunnel entrance forces cold air to settle near the ground while warmer air remains trapped above. This simple design creates a thermal pocket, an invisible barrier against the cold. Shelters are oriented deliberately. Openings face away from prevailing winds. Hills and rock formations are used as shields. Snow is packed against walls for insulation, not removed. What seems hostile becomes protective. Fire cannot simply be added. Combustion consumes oxygen. Smoke suffocates. Carbon monoxide kills silently. Early shelters experiment through loss and memory. Ventilation evolves slowly. Cracks near the roof, porous ceilings, small smoke holes that balance airflow without bleeding heat. Soot blackens the interior. This is not neglect. Dark surfaces absorb radiant heat more effectively. Smoke preserves wood and repels insects. The shelter ages, and aging becomes a sign of success. Seasonal adaptability is built in. Roofs are layered in winter, stripped in summer. Entrances shift. Walls are repaired and thickened as cold deepens. The shelter is not static architecture. It is a living system. Inside, sound changes. Wind dulls. The outside world becomes distant. Time stretches. Light dims. The shelter forms a boundary, not just physical, but psychological. Inside is order. Outside is entropy. This space is not yet a home. It is a barrier against physics, a buffer between fragile biology and an indifferent planet. But within this barrier, something remarkable begins to happen. Humans stop reacting moment to moment. They begin planning, measuring, refining. The shelter becomes humanity's first machine, designed not for productivity or progress, but for endurance. And endurance is the foundation of everything that follows. The heart of the shelter is fire. It glows in the darkness, a small sun trapped beneath a low ceiling, radiating warmth into the cold, still air. Fire is not comfort, it is survival. Without it, the shelter is just a hollow in the earth. With it, life endures. But fire is a machine, not magic. It obeys rules. It consumes fuel at predictable rates. A small hearth produces roughly 3 to 5 kilowatts of thermal energy, enough to raise the temperature of a confined shelter by 10 to 15 degrees Celsius in an hour, depending on volume, insulation, and airflow. Too much fire, and heat escapes through gaps in walls and roof. Too little, and condensation forms on hides and clothing, drawing warmth from the body at an insidious pace. Early humans become engineers. Hearths are not randomly placed. Central locations ensure uniform warmth. Stone linings store heat during the day, radiating it slowly at night. Raised platforms or depressions in the floor influence airflow, distributing heat and directing smoke upward. Each modification is learned, tested, and retained in memory or shared orally. The shelter breathes with purpose. Fuel management becomes a constant calculus. Hardwoods burn slowly, releasing up to 20 megajoules per kilogram. Softwoods ignite quickly, providing instant heat but short-lived energy. Where trees are scarce, dung, dried grasses, and animal fat become reliable substitutes. Dung smolders at a steady 400 to 500 degrees Celsius, giving consistent warmth while consuming minimal oxygen. Animal fat burned in stone lamps produces radiant heat in confined spaces without flames that threaten clothing or hides. Ventilation is precision engineering. Cold air is drawn in at low points. Warm, smoke-laden air escapes at high vents or porous ceilings. In the semi-subterranean pit houses of Siberia or Scandinavia, narrow smoke channels lead gases gently upward, preventing suffocation without losing more than a fraction of precious heat. A miscalculation can be fatal, carbon monoxide levels of just 0.1% in the air can incapacitate within minutes, while 0.3% proves deadly. Ancient humans understand this danger instinctively, balancing oxygen, airflow, and fire intensity through observation and repeated trial. Animals become integrated components of the system. Livestock, like cattle or reindeer, are brought indoors during winter. A single cow emits roughly 1,000 watts of body heat, equivalent to 10 humans at rest. In tightly packed shelters, this heat supplements the fire, reducing fuel consumption. Even dogs, smaller and less warm, serve as living radiators. Breath, fur, and body warmth merge into a complex thermodynamic ecosystem. Human and animal survival are interdependent. They share air, space, and energy. Clothing functions as mobile insulation. Layers trap air, which slows conductive heat loss. Furs worn inside, hides outside, create a microclimate around the body. Moisture management is critical. Sweat becomes a threat. Wet layers increase conductive and evaporative heat loss exponentially. One damp garment can triple energy expenditure to maintain core temperature. Ancient humans avoid this silently, working during daylight to generate warmth but venting excess heat, brushing snow from clothing before entering, and drying boots and gloves with care. Food becomes engineered insulation. Fat contains 9 kilocalories per gram, more than double carbohydrates or proteins. Meat is dried, smoked, or frozen. Fermentation preserves essential nutrients. Bone marrow is extracted, dense with calories and lipids, providing energy and warmth from within. Nothing is wasted. Daily caloric intake is calculated subconsciously. Underfeeding accelerates cooling, overfeeding wastes precious resources. Every morsel is part of the survival equation. Daily routines follow physics as much as tradition. Labor occurs during the brightest, least cold hours. Stillness dominates night. Movement generates heat but consumes energy. Rest conserves energy but risks hypothermia. Water is rationed, melted slowly over embers to preserve fuel, and ice is chosen carefully. Dense, clear ice for drinking, snow for insulation. Steam is dangerous in confined spaces. A single burst can scald or fill a shelter with suffocating humidity. Tools are extensions of survival logic. Handles are thick to be gripped with gloves. Edges sharpened to reduce effort. Implements are crafted to minimize energy expenditure. Axes, knives, saws, and digging tools are optimized for low-temperature efficiency. A dull blade can cost hours of labor and hundreds of calories. Precision matters, even in extreme conditions. Inside the shelter, surfaces darken with soot. Blackened walls are deliberate. They absorb radiant heat, storing and releasing it through the night. Smoke preserves timber and repels pests. Stone or clay surfaces reflect and diffuse warmth. Every material is functional. Every layer intentional. A shelter becomes a thermal engine, each component contributing to stability. Fire management extends into the night. Coals are banked under ash, maintaining a low, steady heat that can be rekindled quickly. Rekindling from embers, rather than sparks, saves fuel and reduces risk. Ancient humans developed techniques, layered fuels, insulated hearts, controlled airflow that make fire predictable. In this environment, predictability is survival. The shelter itself is dynamic. Walls are reinforced with additional layers of sod or hides as winter deepens. Roofs are adjusted for ventilation or insulation. Entrances are blocked or opened according to wind direction. The shelter is not passive. It is responsive, constantly adapted through observation. It is a system that moves with the environment, not against it. Inside, the rhythm of life is governed by energy. Meals are planned around fire cycles. Work follows the sun to avoid exhausting fuel. Sleeping arrangements are optimized for thermal efficiency. The youngest or most vulnerable placed closest to heat sources, layering bodies to trap warmth. Shared heat is a literal and symbolic survival strategy. Ancient humans understand that survival is not only engineering but orchestration. Fire, shelter, clothing, food, animals, and routines form a single system. Remove one component, and the whole falters. Efficiency is paramount. Loss is lethal. Every action is measured against physics. Heat transfer, caloric expenditure, airflow, combustion, insulation. In these moments, the shelter becomes more than protection. It becomes a machine, a living, breathing, responsive environment engineered for endurance. Human, animal, and fire coexist in a delicate balance of energy, heat, and oxygen. The line between biology and engineering blurs. Here, in these confined, soot-darkened spaces, life continues through the harshest of seasons. Each ember preserved, each breath conserved, each layer of clothing applied, is a calculated act of survival. Ancient humans are not merely enduring. They are mastering the environment through observation, adaptation, and engineering. The shelter is no longer just a hole in the earth. It is an ecosystem, a thermal network, a precision instrument against entropy. And in this careful, patient orchestration, humanity learns a lesson that endures through millennia. Survival is not random. It is a system. Every element matters. Every detail counts. Fire is more than warmth. Shelter is more than walls. Life persists because energy is managed, not wasted, and because humans, for the first time in history, understand that they can engineer their own endurance. Winter is more than cold. It is isolation. It is a quiet enemy that stretches nights into eternity, that erases tracks, that bends trees and stills rivers under ice. In these long months, survival transcends the body. It becomes a test of mind, of social cohesion, of memory itself. Shelter and fire no longer suffice on their own. Humans must endure psychologically as much as physically. Inside semi-subterranean pit houses or sod-walled dwellings, the world shrinks. Walls, low ceilings, smoke-darkened timber, these are the boundaries of life. Beyond them lies wind, frost, and darkness. Here, time is measured not in hours, but in tasks: feeding animals, tending fire, repairing tools, preserving food. Repetition becomes a rhythm. Rhythm becomes comfort. In this compressed world, the human mind seeks patterns, stories, and meaning. Stories are not trivial. They are insulation for the mind. Oral traditions pass vital information, whether patterns, construction techniques, hunting strategies, food preservation, medicinal herbs. Every tale contains practical knowledge, encoded in narrative. Memory becomes survival. Forgetting is dangerous. The stories are repeated nightly, cemented in rhythm and voice, connecting generations even in the harshest isolation. Spiritual beliefs often emerge from this necessity. Fire is sacred, hearth central. Ancestors are said to dwell beneath the earth, where warmth endures when the surface freezes. Rituals mark solstices, the return of sunlight, or the first thaw. These acts are not superstition alone. They are psychological scaffolds, maintaining hope and structure when the external world is relentless. Humans in extreme climates innovate spiritually as they do physically. They construct meaning as carefully as they construct walls. Social structure adapts to winter's pressures. Knowledge becomes currency. Elders guide survival strategies. They recall how the last winter ended, how the ice thawed, how the snow layered. They are consulted on fuel allocation, fire management, animal care, and hunting plans. Children observe, imitate, rehearse the skills they will need for months of isolation and the work of spring. Roles are clearly defined: who maintains the hearth, who tends animals, who repairs shelter. Order is energy-saving strategy, minimizing conflict and conserving mental and physical resources. Preparation is relentless. Winter may dominate, but it is not endless. Spring is inevitable but unpredictable. Tools are repaired and sharpened. Hides are mended. Snares are inspected. Food caches inventoried. Ice is measured for safe travel. Snow bridges and shelters are evaluated. Knowledge is accumulated as tangible, actionable data. The shelter becomes a laboratory for survival science. Every failure is analyzed. Every success is codified. Lessons are transferred across generations. The human species survives because information survives, encoded in architecture, practice, and story. The psychological demands of winter are acute. Sleep is irregular, nights are long, light is scarce. Seasonal affective changes challenge mood and cognition. Communities develop strategies, clustering bodies for warmth, synchronizing activity with daylight, maintaining rituals, and creating routines to regulate time. These measures reduce entropy in both environment and mind. Human resilience is engineered as deliberately as the shelter itself. Winter also shapes innovation. The scarcity of fuel, food, and daylight drives efficiency. Hearths are optimized. Ventilation systems are refined. Clothing and bedding are layered and rotated to preserve warmth. Food preservation becomes an art of energy economics. Drying, smoking, freezing, fermenting, and rationing. Each technique reduces waste and extends life. Every calorie conserved increases the probability of survival. The human mind calculates and adapts under pressure, a biological computer responding to environmental stressors with cultural algorithms. Spring brings not relief but reckoning. Snow melts, rivers swell, walls weaken. Structures built for winter are evaluated. Roofs are repaired or replaced. Sod layers are rebuilt. Fire pits are cleaned, stone walls reinforced. These physical tasks are mirrored by social and intellectual evaluation. Which techniques worked, which failed, which adaptations should be carried forward. Survival is never static. It is a feedback loop, each season informing the next. The knowledge accumulated in winter is not ephemeral. Pit houses, dugouts, and sod dwellings leave traces in the landscape, depressions in soil, layers of ash, midden heaps. Archaeologists reconstruct survival systems thousands of years later by studying these remnants. Earth-sheltered designs, thermal mass concepts, airflow channels, hearth engineering, these innovations echo in modern passive houses, in energy-efficient architecture, in disaster shelters. The physics that governed ancient survival continues to govern human engineering today. Endurance is intertwined with culture. The structures, tools, and rituals of winter's survival shape identity. Communities learn patience, observation, cooperation. These traits are encoded in language, custom, and storytelling. Fire, hearth, and shelter are central symbols. They represent not merely protection, but the persistence of knowledge, of lineage, of human ingenuity. Humanity is defined not only by its capacity to manipulate materials, but by its capacity to endure collectively, intellectually, and spiritually. Ancient humans negotiate with nature, not dominate it. Winter is not an enemy to be conquered. It is a system to understand. Its temperature gradients, its wind patterns, its snow density, and its fuel scarcity inform every decision. Shelters are built with awareness of heat flow and insulation properties. Fire is managed to balance energy release with oxygen availability. Animals are integrated for warmth and efficiency. Clothing and food systems are optimized to preserve both heat and calories. Time itself is measured by survival cycles. Humanity survives because it adapts, observes, and engineers within constraints it does not control. This lesson carries philosophical weight. Survival is not merely biological, it is cognitive, social, and moral. Humans learn to calculate risk, distribute resources, share knowledge, and maintain hope. Endurance is inseparable from culture. Every winter season becomes a teacher. Every failure a proof of cause and effect. Every success a blueprint for generations yet unborn. In the quiet warmth of earth and fire, humanity discovers its first mastery of complexity. Not through conquest, not through technology alone, but through integration of physics, biology, culture, and mind. Shelters, hearths, routines, and rituals form a network of survival, a system in which every element matters. Fire is heart. Shelter is machine. Story is insulation for the mind. Knowledge is the oxygen that sustains hope. And as spring arrives, ice melts, and the first sun touches frost-hardened soil, the human story continues. Tools are repaired, lessons remembered, animals tended, and the cycle begins anew. Survival is not luck, it is engineering. Not brute force, but subtle understanding. Not conquest, but negotiation with an environment that does not yield easily. The legacy of these systems is profound. Modern engineering, disaster preparedness, sustainable architecture, and even our understanding of thermal physics echo the lessons learned in pit houses and sod shelters. Humanity did not simply endure winter, it built intelligence.